Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm here with Kate Koschel from our college counseling office, and we are going to be spending this time together talking about decoding the financial aid offers that you are probably currently receiving. So we hope that this video is going to be helpful to you at this time. So these are sort of the overview of our program this evening is that we want you to become knowledgeable about what is a financial aid offer and where do I find it? What do financial aid offers include? Um, we are also going to make sure that you can compare the offers that you are receiving and then like what are the next steps after that. So those are our outcomes for today. So I'm going to start off our presentation at the beginning and kind of walking you through what is financial aid and the different parts of it. And then Ms. Kasha will take over to kind of talk about like how do you begin to calculate those as well. So the best place to start is talking about what is financial aid. And basically it is a way for colleges to indicate to you that money that comes to your student, whether it's through the federal government, local government, or the school itself, that will help you pay for college. So, a financial aid award letter is going to make college more affordable for our families. And then also, it helps cover the gap between what you can afford to pay and the cost of college. It also outlines loans as well. So, what you are going to be given, what you can borrow, and all of the things that you are earning. So, your award letter or your financial aid offer is going to be the place where all of this information is listed. Now let's talk about the sources of financial aid. I like to think that there are four sources, and that's going to start with the federal government. And if you filled out the FAFSA or the free application for federal student aid, you are helping your student to either qualify for money through the federal government. Filling out that FAFSA also makes you eligible for state government monies as well. And a lot of times after that, colleges will look at that FAFSA information and then also qualify you for maybe need based programs at their school. But colleges will also use your FAFSA information to award additional monies. And then also outside of the federal government, state government, and the college itself, you can actually secure financial aid privately, most of the time in the form of loans. Now, a financial aid offer or financial aid letter or an aid notification, award notification is basically an outline for each student that they will receive from a school they've been accepted to. And it shows how much financial aid you'll receive when you are attending a specific college. So every college kind of names it something else. They sometimes call it award notification, aid notifications, but they should be sending those to you right about now. Your financial aid offer is going to include information about the school. So, one, it's going to talk about your plan for enrollment, as well as your housing option, whether you'll be on campus or off campus. It's going to include the college cost before the financial aid. So, like that tuition fees, room and board, what would that cost? It will also show you the financial aid that the college is offering, and then it'll also include next steps of how do you actually accept this financial aid offer and to enroll at the school. The best places for you to look for your financial aid offers is usually inside of your student portal. There's usually a financial aid section where your aid letter will be listed. Sometimes they email it to you directly, and sometimes it can come through the mail as well. So please make sure to check your portals. So, when we're looking at the financial aid that is offered, a lot of times on award letters, you're going to see different terminology for different schools. Sometimes schools talk about gift aid. So this is aid that is given to you, in whether it's the form of a grant or a scholarship. And then there's self-help aid or aid that is going to either be borrowed or earned. So that's going to include like federal student loans, federal work study, and private loans as well. Grants are going to be listed on your award letter, and grants are usually often need based. A lot of times, students are qualifying for those based on their financial aid or their FAFSA application. Some grants may also require you to submit that. So, there are some students and families who may not submit a FAFSA, but it is important to think about that FAFSA can qualify you for this grant money. Colleges may also offer institutional grants as well. A lot of times it'll have the name of the school, it will have like a mascot or the name of a president. So usually you'll see the word grant afterwards if it's coming from the college. Illinois based grants, the state of Illinois offers it the MAP grant, which is the Illinois Monetary Award Program. And the maximum amount you can receive from the state of Illinois based on your FAFSA information is $8,064. So the federal government has something very similar to the Illinois MAP grant, and that is called the Pell Grant. And it is a need-based, both of these are need-based grants. And the federal Pell Grant is going to be up to $7,395, but they will clearly say grant next to it. Now, scholarships are going to be on your award letter as well. Sometimes they show up on your acceptance letters too. They will say, you've been accepted to this school, you have the presidential scholarship. So you want to make sure anything that was listed on your acceptance letter also shows up on your financial aid offer as well. So colleges can award scholarships, whether they are need-based, based on your FAFSA information, merit-based, based on your academic performance, most likely the transcript that you sent to the school, as well as the program or the major that you might be interested in. So sometimes if you are a business major, you may get a business scholarship based on your academic performance as well. Eligibilities for scholarships vary by scholarship program. You want to pay attention to the terms of your scholarship because there are sometimes scholarships that it's just one time versus a renewable scholarship. So a good example of like a one-time scholarship would be like freshman scholarship. You'd want to ask the school, is this something that my student can continue to receive? Is there a process? Because sometimes if it doesn't show up on like your sophomore or junior year, that might have been only a freshman year scholarship. So if you have one of those listed, I would want to contact the school and make sure you understand the terms of that scholarship versus a renewable scholarship, which means like, say, for instance, you did receive that presidential scholarship and it is renewable for 4 years. There are going to be requirements for you to continue receiving that scholarship while you are in college. So it is going to be really important to be mindful to understand the requirements for any scholarship or scholarship money that's listed on your award letter. What are the requirements for that? It's also really good to know that you can bring in outside scholarship money to your colleges. I want to take this opportunity to plug Ms. Kaushall's scholarship list. There are opportunities on there for students to apply for lots of scholarships that are local or specifically related for a special program or an interest or something that is unique to you. You can bring scholarship money or private scholarships to your schools. And if you need help finding those resources, you can find that scholarship list on our DePaul College Prep College Planning page. Very often, students at this time of the year are considering whether or not I should take out loans. You can hear in the media that there are some students that have like a lot of student loan debt, but that is something to consider whether or not you want to take on debt. But student loans are really helpful to have, help you afford your college at this time. So some things to think about as you evaluate your options of whether or not to take out loans is understand the source of the loans. Where is the money coming from? Federal student loans look very different than private loans, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the differences there. You'd want to be very knowledgeable about your rate of interest because anytime you borrow money, there will be an interest rate involved. Is it variable? Is it fixed? Will it stay the same or will it change? Repayment and grace periods. Loans are very different, and their repayment terms and their grace periods are very different. So you want to become knowledgeable about when are you required to start paying and what repayment options you have. And then also paying attention to subsidized loans versus unsubsidized loans. Loans that are coming through the federal government have these designations. Thinking about subsidized loans are generally more desirable because the interest is actually being paid for by the federal government. And those are generally decided or they are thought of to be more desirable because the student is not taking on the interest payment. It's also really important to understand when does the interest rate or interest begin to accrue as well. So these are all things that you consider whether or not to take out loans to help you pay for college. Now, federal student loans are going to be a possible options for students, and the way in which you qualify for federal student loans is by completing the FAFSA. And it is going to be in the student name. So when students are getting loans or federal loans through the government, they will be required to be paid back by the students. The federal government has put some borrowing limits in that apply for each year of college. So freshmen are able to borrow less than seniors. So it's really important to know that that number increases over the years, but there is a limit into which how much you can borrow. And the maximum is $31,000 through the federal government. And then there are only types of loans for certain types of loans for income-driven repayments. But some of those programs are being looked at more specifically right now. But one of the great things about having governments through the federal loan is that sometimes they have more favorable terms in terms of repayment as well. So talking a little bit more deeply about the sub versus unsubsidized loans, the two types of loans that you can receive through the federal government are direct subsidized loans. These are need-based. The wonderful thing about the subsidized is that the interest is paid by the federal government while the student is in school at least half time. So if you say, for instance, depart from your university and do not have plans coming back, if you take out loans, they can go into repayment. Also, the interest in federal loans, there can be grace periods. So student loans don't need to be repaid until 6 months after graduation or departing from the school. One of the great things about subsidized loans is that there can be a deferment as well. So like you can put your repayment into like a pause as well. Now, direct unsubsidized loans are not need-based, and the student is always going to be responsible for paying the interest. So on an award letter, you will see two loans being offered. You will see a subsidized and unsubsidized loan, and each amount is going to be different. So when you see these on your award letters, please pay attention to which one is subsidized, which the interest is going to be paid by the government, and then unsubsidized. Here you will see the different interest rates for the types of loans that are going to be offered through the federal government. So student loans for undergraduate students right now, the interest rate is about 6.5%. Graduate student loans are a little bit higher. And then plus loans, which are going to be for parents, is at 9%. So there is an additional federal loan that parents can also take out as well to support their students, but that interest rate is a little bit higher. So, as I was saying earlier, there is a limit to how much students can borrow. So, the annual limit for a freshman is 5,500. It goes up to 6,500 as a sophomore, and junior and senior year are at the same amount, but that is the maximum amount for each year that you can borrow. And you can see in sort of the aggregate data that if you only take out the amount limit, if you only use loans for 4 years, you would be borrowing $27,000, but you would have access if you needed to continue studying during a fifth year or an additional semester. You will have additional access to borrow up to a maximum of $31,000. So the last thing that I'm going to talk through that you might also see on your award letter is a federal work study. Now, this is a designation that students receive that is a need-based employment program. And this is where the student must, in the title of it, must work to secure the funds. Now, the funds are limited and they're first come, first serve, and they are it's campus based. So that means the student who qualifies for federal work study, it will say how much work study you qualify for. You would have to go to the employment office on campus. You'd have to let them know that you qualify for federal work study. You'd have to apply and get the job, and then you can work for that money. But be really mindful that that money comes directly to you and does not go to your tuition. So at this time, I'm actually going to kick it over to Ms. Kaushal to walk us through our second half of our presentation.
Thank you. So now we know all these pieces are going to be part of a financial aid offer, but how much does it actually cost? One of the things that Ms. Monroe talked about as well that I don't think we dug into deeply enough was Parent Plus loans. So we don't really talk that deeply about them because as far as being a desirable type of aid for your student for college, it's probably one of the least desirable ones that you can take. As you can see, the Parent Plus loan has a higher interest rate. It needs to start being paid back right away, and you have to do a credit check. So you have to be eligible to take out those loans in the first place. And the type of aid that we really kind of want to stay away from is private loans if at all possible. Those can be so much more variable as far as the interest rates, just like a credit card, maybe even up to 22%. They need to start being paid back right away, whether it's the student or the parent. So the kind of money that we want, if we can get it, is that free academic merit money, those grants if our family has need, that work study, although not guaranteed, is something that your student can earn. So as much free money as we can possibly get, or figuring out our own out-of-pocket costs and just kind of paying out of pocket are better choices if possible. So as far as how much college costs, colleges use a formula to let you know how much they would cost on the financial aid offer. It does say estimated budget, interestingly, on your financial aid offer, because a lot of colleges will get their budget in June or July. So they're basing it on what they think their budget might be, and there should be only slight differences. So it's going to be pretty accurate when you're looking at the cost of that college on that financial aid offer. Direct costs. So when you're looking at a financial aid offer, direct costs are those that you're paying directly to the institution. So you're writing your check, you're paying your $10,000 that's left over. Whereas an indirect cost is more of an estimate about what they think you might need to go to that college. So for example, if you're going to University of Arizona, you're going to have to factor in more travel costs than say if you were going to Roosevelt University, because you're going to be flying back and forth. You're going to have to figure out how to get your stuff shipped there. So those indirect costs are just an estimate about the college, what they think you might need for things like books, et cetera, which we'll see on the next slide. And this is how they figure out how much the college costs in total. So that cost of attendance, that terminology. So again, those direct costs are going to be the tuition. How much does it cost to take classes? Fees, like how much does it cost to use the rec center and go to the gym? And then your housing, are you living on campus? Are we charging you for dorm costs? And food, so your meal plan if you have one. Whereas again, those indirect costs are going to be books. Are you renting them? Are you actually going to buy them? Supplies, getting your hair done, transportation, getting back and forth, maybe having a car on campus. So those the colleges can't necessarily predict for you, but they give you an average of what they think it might cost. and they're not going to be demanding you give them the money for those indirect costs. They're only going to be asking you pay them for those direct costs to them, and the indirect costs will kind of be up to you on how you're shaping them. Now, when it comes to the FAFSA, if your family decided to file the FAFSA, you will get something called a student aid index. And this is going to play into these financial aid offers and the cost of attendance. So what that aid index is a number generated by the FAFSA, and it's found in your student aid report, which is given to you after you submit. So it's a PDF that you can see. Why does it matter? That's used to determine the eligibility for need-based aid, so that federal and state aid, and even some need-based institutional or college grants. And this is something I really want families to check out. Sometimes you won't even get a financial aid offer if you do not do the FAFSA or the CSS, even if you might qualify for merit money. So you want to check, even if you don't have any need-based indicators in your income, you might be stopping your child from getting merit or academic money if the college requires you to fill out the FAFSA or CSS to get any financial aid offer. So make sure you're checking with your college. If they don't need it to give you academic or merit money, then maybe don't worry about it as much. But if you see, like I just looked at TCU today and it said they want families to fill out the CSS in order to give them academic and merit money. So you could potentially be stopping yourself from getting some extra money, even if your income is much higher than the need-based indicators. So that's my prep speech for FAFSA. So I'm pro FAFSA and CSS, even if you are infinitely having those resources, because it might actually get you a discount on the cost of college, which is expensive for everybody. As far as the student aid index and what kind of numbers you'll see, there's actually some really cool charts online that you can find where it will give you the full range of SAIs based on income. So you could check that out. But for this particular chart, what it's telling you is there's a wide range of SAIs, which is much different than how it used to be with the expected family contribution in the past. And an SAI number is not what you're expected to pay for the college. So you can see, for example, for someone who has full need, I'm going to circle this, how fun, they would have a negative 1,500 student aid index. So that means they have pretty much zero income coming in, or they have a very low income and would require the full amount of Pell and MAP for their college experience, whereas someone might have almost over $1 million for their student aid index, and that's going to be someone with a higher income. And that means they're not going to qualify for need-based grants, but the student could still qualify for institutional scholarships. So how does FAFSA determine this need? So unfortunately, it's a little complicated. It's 4 different calculations. So they take the parent income and the student income and the parent assets and the student assets. And then they come up with an SAI, and they're thinking, okay, based on this discretionary income that you might have left after bills, after having kids in private school, this would be your SAI, which would calculate your need. So that's your student aid index. And you would only have that number if you filled the FAFSA out. And then when the colleges on the financial aid office side are looking at your SAI, what they do is a formula. So they take the cost of the attendance, that would be the tuition, fees, room and board, and estimated indirect costs. Then they subtract your SAI number, and it may be any other scholarships that they're aware of. And then there they find your need. So if you're at that negative 1,500, you would have full need. Now, a problem can be, even if you have full need, that not all colleges meet full need. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a financial aid offer that covers everything with no loans and no gaps, because every college has a different amount that they are able to offer to a student. So this is why it's really important to review those financial aid offers to make an informed decision. And these are some things to keep in mind as you review these offers, and we're about to look at some, which is exciting. You want to know, what is the cost of attendance? What is your student aid index and aid and eligibility? Will you qualify for any need-based aid? And if not, will you qualify for scholarships? Any academic money that maybe didn't get offered to you that you could catch? Was the financial need met? This could be really Tricky for middle income families, I would say, because you don't necessarily qualify for need-based aid, but you also don't maybe have like a lot of money to pay, 50,000 out of pocket. So that's why you would really want to compare back and forth. Okay, are they meeting some of my need? Can they meet any of my need? Are there any other scholarships or departmental offers that my student could get? Should we use loans? Also, you want to check out what types of aid are included, because maybe a financial aid offer looks really good, but then you see there's like a $20,000 Parent Plus loan on there, and you say, I'm not feeling like taking that out. So will I be doing a payment plan, or how are we going to do this as a family? So some colleges will offer a ton of self-help loans that maybe you don't want, whereas others will be making an effort to put a lot of gift aid on there, so that free money. And then the big important thing is, what is my out-of-pocket cost? And is this feasible for my family? We really want our families to pick awesome colleges, but we also want to be financially supportive of you as well. Is this meeting your family's goals as far as like renovating your house or buying your kid a car someday? So you want to think about the full 4 to 5 years, and is this out-of-pocket cost going to be feasible for us for the next 4 years and my child? So some things you want to consider as you're comparing. You want to get a financial aid offer that offers more grants, so more free money than loans. You can compare the types of loans that are offered. So those student loans that are federal student loans are going to be more desirable than a Parent Plus loan. Does it have a good interest rate? Can you afford to pay the unmet financial need? And then always good to ask for a payment plan to make it more reasonable. So is my payment plan going to be over 10 months? Is it going to be over 12 months? And then for future packages, Ms. Mondro mentioned this as well. Is this money going to be offered to my child every year? Or is it just a freshman scholarship kind of to lure them in and then they don't get any support? So you want to know, is that renewable? And what are the stipulations? So if my kid gets below a 3.0 in their first year, do they lose their scholarship? And then this is no longer feasible for me and my family. So those are some of the things that you want to think about as you're comparing. Another thing that we really want to encourage families to do is talk to financial aid offices. This is a big consumer decision that you're making, so you're well within encouragement to talk to them as a partner and just ask the questions, because if they say no, okay, but at least you asked and know what's available to you. So question number 1, is there more financial aid available? Is there something we missed that could qualify us for more academic money, more merit money? I had a great conversation with a family earlier where they mentioned that Mizzou will still take test scores up till June, and that could get your child more merit money. So that's something to consider. What happens if my circumstances change? So let's say in sophomore year, you have your own independent business, it's doing really well. Now, senior year, the income has taken a dip. That's something to reach out to your financial aid office about, because they have something called professional judgment, where they might be able to adjust your financial aid. Same thing as when your child is in college. You're going to be getting a financial aid offer every year. FAFSA can be filled out every year. So let's say you got laid off or you had another child. Any circumstances that change, reach out to that financial aid office and let them know. What happens to my child's financial aid after the first year? We've discussed that one, but just hammering that point, you can ask the financial aid office that. Stipulations on scholarships. Are they renewable? Are there more scholarships in years to come? Work study. How available is work study? Like, will it be really hard for my kid to find a job on campus? Are there any part-time jobs that don't require work study status that my child could get and add to their income? You also want to ask, what are some alternate ways to pay for out-of-pocket costs? So are there payment plans, any private loans that they partner with? Other things that you can find data-wise are average indebtedness. So you can look at college data and see, for school A, are students way more in debt and defaulting on their loans than school B? That might be some helpful information to know before you're making this big financial decision. How do outside scholarships affect financial aid offers? The only time I've seen this being a problem is when a student essentially has a full ride of free money and then they get a private scholarship, and then the college kind of uses that like as a discount to take away a little of the free money that they gave. When students have some out-of-pocket costs still remaining, usually private scholarships don't affect that, but it's definitely a question you can ask. And then are there other on-campus offices that can help my child with paying for college? So you can think about things like, is there a scholarship office on campus? Does the business department give additional scholarships? So ask those questions. The more well-known your student is in the financial aid office and the scholarship office, the more likely we as caring adults are willing to kind of like throw extra money their way or throw them other scholarship opportunities to apply for. So that's another thing, building those relationships and networking with the financial aid office can be very helpful as well. All right. So we're going to be doing some back and forth sample award letter and real award letter comparisons. So I'm going to ask Miss Mondro to reveal herself again. Hi, we're back. Another thing I want to point out before we kind of conclude our program is that we're here to help you. So if you are confused by this, as we are, because they don't look alike at all. You'll notice as we go through these, they're all very different looking. They might not be disclosing exactly what the cost is. I also get very annoyed when colleges do like, you need to calculate how many credit hours you're going to take to get my tuition. So I have to figure out, okay, it's 15 credit hours. I have to do the math for each of those. That class costs blah, blah, blah. So let us help you with that if you want assistance on comparing, or reach directly out to that financial aid office and make an appointment and get help walking through it. Okay, so this is a sample aid award letter that we're going to show you to get started as kind of like a baseline. And it's laid out more nicely than some. So at the very top, they have the estimated cost of attendance for us. So we can see that this school costs $62,700. Tuition and fees is $46,000 and food and housing is $13,000. Note for both of these numbers, tuition and fees and food and housing, these are estimates as well because we're not sure what your child is going to pick at the college. So are they going to pick a single room? Are they going to pick a 30-meal plan? That's going to be more expensive. Or are they going to pick the very basic room with like the suite and 5 other people? Are they going to be picking, like just occasional meals? Are they living at home? So those are going to drag costs down and make it a little more affordable, or less money for your family. Indirect costs, again, we talked, those are kind of variable. So depending on where your child lives, the transportation could be $650. Maybe they live down the street and they're taking the train and they have a U-Pass. Or maybe it could be $2,000 because they're flying back and forth to California. So those are some of the things that you'll have to kind of figure out with your family on how to budget for that, or talk to the financial aid office. Okay, so we got this baseline of what this is going to cost. And this number up here, which is like 46 plus 13, I have to do mental math in my head. It's about $59,000 that's going directly to the college. And these indirect costs could really vary depending on our choices. Now, for our financial aid, we want the free stuff. We don't want to pay it back. So we have grants and scholarships right here. And the grant is going to be need-based. So if my family didn't have any need, this family in particular has some need, but doesn't qualify for a full Pell. It's about $4,000. But we also have a really nice university scholarship based on our child's academic performance for about $25,000. So that chipped off some money there. So that's about half left over. This college award offer is really lovely, and most colleges do not do this, but they put a payment plan together for you, which is really nice. So if you don't see that on there and you want that, you would talk to financial aid and figure out what those options are. So for the estimated balance, they're lovely that they told you what it was. It's $28,200. You can either make 10 payments a year or 12 payments a year, which would be a little, like, kind of reduce the lump sum per month. They also put work study off at the bottom, and it notes that the child could get $3,000. And we want to note that this is not guaranteed money. If your child does not find a job, or they decide not to do it, or they work less hours than the award letter is suggesting, that $3,000 may or may not be there, or it could be more if they work a little more. So that's just something to consider, that this is something that we may want, but you got to make sure there's steps in place to actually get the job, et cetera. So something you have to follow through on. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over to my colleague to give you a different award offer. I keep saying award offer because there's too many terms. Financial aid offer. Go ahead.
So this is an example from Illinois Wesleyan for a pretty current award letter that students are receiving. And notice how like very pared down this is. Like the previous award letter, the sample that Ms. Kaushal just walked us through, had all these really wonderful parts. It helps you calculate, but really this award letter is very simple. It's just listing all of the different things you see: an alumni scholarship, a housing scholarship, alumni grant, a Titan grant, a MAP grant, a Pell Grant, an FSEOG grant. I am also noting here that you will see an IWU loan. Some colleges can offer loans through their schools themselves. I would ask a clarifying question to the school about like what are sort of the terms of that loan. Just like when you're considering your federal loans, is what are the terms of theirs. Some may say, hey, you can borrow this for right now, and as long as you remain a student here, you might not have to pay it back. But it is really important to, anytime you see loan that is not like sort of a precursor to like a direct loan, is to ask what the loan's terms are, so that you are aware of like if you do use that $1,000 here, how you should go about paying that back. And what you'll see here, you do see federal work study listed out in the amount of $2,400. But again, this award letter is being very simple and straightforward with you about tuition and fees, housing, room and board, and your total cost. But the only problem is it does no calculation for you. So you would have to spend the time subtracting your direct charges from the aid that you've received. And notice they break it down by semester 1 and semester 2. So always use the column that says total, because that will help you get your yearly amount. So I'm going to kick it back to Ms. Kaushal for our next award letter.
Awesome. Let's see. So this is Oberlin. So this is a private, somewhat selective school in Ohio with some really good arts programs. Notice that one, we're out of state, so we're not getting any MAP grant. And if we stayed in Illinois and qualified for need-based aid, we would get some extra money. However, it's really interesting because in-state, out-of-state doesn't always pan up as in-state being cheaper. So it's something to keep in mind as well. For Oberlin specifically, it is very expensive. So it's almost $90,000 compared to our two peers earlier. But they also are very generous with their grants and scholarships. So for this particular students, they have a total gift assistance of over $85,000. Some of it is based on needs, so they meet full Pell. But they got some additional scholarship monies and some grants based on need too. They were still offered loans, but not the full amount. So one thing to look at for loans is you don't have to take them. So you can take partial loans if you want to. Let's say, for example, I have 3,700 here, and I'm like, you know what, I only need 1,000. Then you can decline parts of the loan and only accept what you need. So you are not forced to take the full amount, or you can decline them altogether. With the grants, you would want to accept all those and make sure you do it properly so you can get all of that. And then for this particular financial aid offer, they do show you in nice clear boxes. These are the billable charges. So that's another way to say direct costs, but I feel like billable charges is actually a little more clear. They're going to bill you for it. And then these indirect ones are ones that could vary based on what you choose. So they package the student really well. Do offer a lot of extra money because of endowments at this private school. So even though a cost may look kind of scary to you, it could be that this is a more affordable option for your family, depending on what kind of free money you get. Okay, I'm going to pass it over.
All right, so we're going to take a look at an award letter from one of our neighboring schools up to the north of Chicago at Lake Forest. This letter is pretty straightforward to read, except for it doesn't break out the total cost, and it's all just listed into one lump number. So it's not broken down by tuition and fees, room and board. Because Lake Forest is so close to us, some students may choose or want to commute there every day. So it's not this award letter is not allowing you to kind of see what your options are to live on campus versus like commuting to campus by just giving you that lump sum number up at the top. So you would probably have to reach out to the school or look on their website to kind of see what is tuition versus what is room and board. But that's covering all of it. One other thing I think we should bring up too is that the second line of this award letter is talking about college's health insurance costs. That is sometimes an important factor to consider. Most students who carry like private health insurance will be able to opt out of the college's health insurance. Every school has a different process for that. So some colleges, you have to opt out of it by proving your insurance by uploading it to a portal. And some say like, well, we're going to keep you out unless you opt in. So every school is going to be different, but you should be really knowledgeable that every student who is on a college campus needs to have health insurance, and schools provide it for those students who don't have it. But most of our students who carry private health insurance, whether it's through their parents, will be able to transfer that insurance through the school. So that is going to be an additional cost, and sometimes it could be like $2,000 to $3,000. So I wouldn't want for you to have like a charge or something you didn't know on your bill because of the insurance. So the other lovely part about financial or this financial aid award letter is that it is very clearly laid out about what is coming from a presidential scholarship, the Forrester flagship grant, whether or not the student is receiving federal grant money as well as state money. So they do a really nice job of doing some calculations for just the aid part. And then also they are very clear about the loan amounts as well as work study. However, this does not do any calculation for you. So again, you will have to figure out whether or not you're going to live on campus or commute, and then adjust accordingly based on that, since Lake Forest is really just offering up just the tuition fees, all of that together in one. Although this is really nicely laid out and easy to understand where everything is coming from, there are still additional steps you might need to take to get clarity around your financial aid award. And I'm going to kick it back to Ms. Koschel.
Great. I think one of the other things too we wanted to point out too that I maybe forgot in an earlier slide is what this is. So a federal supplemental grant or federal education opportunity grant. It's basically some money based on need provided from you doing FAFSA that the college has discretionary oversight for. It tends to run out quickly. So it's for a student maybe who was an early FAFSA filer and qualified, and they had like this $500 laying around that they could give them at their discretion. So that's another thing that you might see on a financial aid offer. Okay. And this is a University of Michigan. One thing too that it's a little late now to go and apply to a bunch of schools, of course. But one thing to note is even in public schools, there's quite a difference in the amount of the sticker price, so how much the college costs for tuition fees, housing, and food. And University of Michigan is a really amazing school with a great reputation. It's on the higher end of cost for a public school for a state flagship. So that's something to note. Often state flagships are known to not have a lot of extra scholarship money lying around either because they don't have endowments and they rely more on the state. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that if your student was maybe going to University of Kansas, the base tuition is going to be a lot lower versus University of Michigan. So when we are looking at the total estimated cost of attendance, they have all these fun boxes. They kind of break it out in 3 little boxes to show you what's happening. They do the math for you, and I'll show you kind of a fun part about that in a minute. But the cost of the school is $72,000, so it is on the higher end for a public school. You have your tuition and fees, housing and food, and they have cute little question marks if you're like, I don't even know what this means. If you if you clicked on the online letter, it would give you a description of all those as well. Indirect costs, you see books and supplies. Transportation is quite low. And then other educational costs could be anything from, health appointments, etc. So your total costs are listed under there. So nicely calculated. Self-help, they have your work study over here and your federal student loans. So that's nice that they break it out and say like, hey, this is money that either needs to be paid back or is not guaranteed with the work study. Next, they have your financial aid offer below. So it has your scholarships and grants. And there's several scholarships and several grants on here. So total of cost of the school after all of these grants is really nice. So they say if you don't want to take out loans, this is what's left over. 15,064. So that's a good number that we want to start with, is like, how much is left if I don't take out loans? And we see that's not terrible. Payment plan could be helpful, but for some families, maybe they say, that's still a little too much for me. And then they also show the estimated cost if using everything. So that's 6,564, which would reduce it considerably. Alrighty. So one of the things beyond our physical presence that you can use, so one, financial aid offices, to us, we can help you compare, is a financial aid offer comparison tool. So let me see if I can click and open it so you can see it. And then I'll screen share that. So this is one tool that we have. ISAC, so the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, while I'm flipping through here, also has a tool. Share this tab instead. That you can use. It's pretty helpful online to compare costs. So this is a simple Google Sheet that does calculations for you. So thank you very much, Google Sheets, for doing Excel formulas. But you can put your colleges in here and compare them, essentially. So this example is for Bradley University. I should have put the SAI here, so I'll fix the sheet so it has the new terminology on it, Student Aid Index. But you can put your direct costs for Bradley in this case, which is in Peoria. It's a private school, $55,000. Indirect costs, so $3,400, and then it does the math for you. Total cost of attendance is $59,000, almost $60,000. And then from your financial aid offer, so the institutional grants you got was $23,000, and if you plug in your numbers in, your federal grants, $73,000. MAP grant, which you qualify for the state of Illinois, in state, $8,000, does the math for you again. So it shows you how much gift aid you get. So this is our free money. Then they have our loans, work study, and then net price is how much is left over after that. There's also a fun section where you can put parent contribution, student contribution. Let's say they have a job on over the summer and they're saving money. Any private loans that you might be taking out are Parent Plus loans. And then it'll show you the gap afterwards. So the net price is the cost of attendance minus your gift aid. We're going to start with that. So it'll be $20,000. If we decided to take out loans, $14,000. Oh no, sorry. Gap after loans payable is $11,000. So not those indirect costs. So you can mess around with this and get a really good idea of comparing offers. But again, we're happy to do that as well. I'm going to switch back to the other tab. Another thing that we really want to note is that with those portals, your student's going to need some help getting in those portals. So if you haven't seen any financial aid offers, we can definitely help them as well. Even as adults, they are all different and they tend to be very trying as figuring out, like, where do I find this financial aid offer? And dual factor authentication is a thing now. So they'll need their phone and their computer. So if they're even needing help figuring out where to find those things, we can help. But you can also nudge them, like, let's say, look in your portal, try to find this stuff. And usually each college is going to have a guide online to help, but they're just kind of skipping the guide and going like, let me try to figure this out. But just something to note that it might be like a bit of a headache just to get in to access the award offer, but it's very, very well worth it. So your final steps for this very intricate process of financial aid offers: one, definitely partner with the financial aid office. You can appeal any circumstances. If you want to ask them if they're your top choice and you have a second choice that's just a couple $1,000 cheaper, you can always ask, like, this is my top choice. Is there any additional academic money they really want to go here? It's okay to ask and appeal. Follow instructions on accepting your chosen offer. Students actually have to go often in their portal, hit accept, decline any loans. And if they don't, that offer is just kind of sitting there waiting for them to take advantage of it. So accept and decline that aid, whatever you want to take out. Fill out any necessary follow-up documents. Sometimes for scholarships, there might be a scholarship agreement that they need to fill out to make sure that they're accepting the scholarship. There may be loan counseling. I remember doing it a long time ago. And it's very boring, but necessary because it tells you what the terms are. I just kind of whipped through, but I probably should have read it a little better. So all the legal terms for the loans, you can sit down them if you want. And a lot of times, those loans won't be available for disbursement until the student actually completes the loan counseling. So you want to make sure they do that if they're taking out loans before orientation, before end of summer. And then right away, this is something that students can do, explore job opportunities on campus and apply. Even if they don't qualify for work study and you want them to have like a little responsibility on campus, I would ask financial aid office if there's any part-time jobs that are not work study, have them look in those portals where you often pick a job and find the calmer jobs like at a computer lab or at the library where you can do your homework. Because there's actually a lot of research that shows students who have part-time jobs on campus under 20 hours, we don't want them to be overwhelmed, do better academically because they have a little more responsibility going on. So those are your follow-up steps, and just connect with us. Any other words of wisdom, Ms. Mondra, that maybe we missed in this very important financial aid offer conversation?
Yes. So when they updated FAFSA in the past couple of years, one of the questions they removed from the FAFSA is how many other students in your household will also be enrolled in college. So it's not automatically known if you have multiple students while in college, because we have some families here where they have two siblings who are going to be in college, or maybe even three, but they won't be able to see that from your FAFSA. So you'd actually have to contact the financial aid office to let them know, like, hey, I have more than one child in college, because it's not automatically reported to the schools through FAFSA anymore. And I think that's like a really nice way to call the financial aid office and just say, hey, this is an additional piece of information that isn't on the FAFSA that is important to our financial reality as we are sending maybe one or two students to college in the same year. So that would be like my final word of advice, is that you have multiple kiddos in college, then the colleges are not going to know that up front. You're going to have to let them know that, and you'd have to contact both financial aid offices as well, so that they are both aware of the sort of need change possibly. So that's just another thing to consider.
Absolutely. That's a great point to bring up. And we want to thank you all for watching this. If you made it all the way to the end, high fives to you. You got to see all the juicy stuff at the end. And just know that the DePaul College Prep family is here for you to help you with whatever questions you have. And we're so excited for your students to take that next step into college enrollment. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much.